Hello, everyone, and welcome to KFC SuperCoach TV for round 19. I'm Al Payton from the Herald Sun, joined by the advertiser guru, the Phantom, and Dan Bagala is back with us as well. So I'm not sure how many trades everybody's got left. I'm down to only 2. We'll go around and survey the experts here. But if you've got any and you've got some questions, fire them at us and we'll see if we can answer them over the next half an hour or so. I just called up my team for the first time in a few days and realised I still had Maurice Rioli on the field. He was my loophole last week. So I put him on the bench and brought Clayton Oliver back on, which has boosted my projected score by a little bit, which is nice to see. So the news early in the week is that Clary will play back from that broken hand. But Dan, we'll probably go straight to you because we haven't had you on for a couple of weeks. So where's Bagala Brigade at with 5 rounds to go? Did you trade Clary, and how many trades you got left, and where's your ranking at?
James, thanks for having me. Good to be back. I actually was pretty unlucky last week. The team was really strong, but I lost 130 points at F1, which was English versus Bond. So that was pretty hard. It was actually kicked off my weekend, and I was in a pretty shattered mood at about 10:30 on Friday night. I knew my weekend was in stride from a scoring perspective, but I actually slipped outside the top 1K. I'm actually 1,003. So I'm 3 spots outside of getting a pair of socks, a hat, and a $20 voucher to KFC with inflation from last year. So going well. I mean, I've got seven forwards. So I've got Isaac Heaney and Treloar, who's actually playing off a halfback flank, which is very favourable to his scoring. And the team's going well. I've got 3 trades. I've got a little bit of cash, 3 trades, no injuries. But I do feel like I am weak at D6. I'm probably weak at M8, and I'm probably weak at F1. So there's a few spots on my ground where I don't feel that great. But otherwise, the rest of the portfolio is well diversified, scoring really well. It's just I'm missing players like Laird in the guts. I'm missing Bont up forward, and I'm probably going to be missing a Smokey Dawson or a Stewart in the defence. So team's really nice, but it's all about just getting to the finals now. Most of my leagues, I'm pretty well placed, and it's about conserving the trades this week. And Clary comes back, which is great, but I don't think we're going to see the same Clary. I think we're going to see a injury-affected Clary for about 4 weeks. We might average 110, 115. So that's my expectation. And in the background, I'm hoping Petrarca picks up the slack in the meantime. He was fantastic against Port and great pod. And Zach Merritt's been a really good pod the last 3 weeks with scores well in excess of 125 from the last 3. So going well. Just hoping to finish top 500 is my goal. But I got bumped 250 spaces on the weekend just by not having Bont. So that hurt a lot. So might have to get him for the finals, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phantom, where's I know your ranking has slipped a tiny bit, but you're still ranked very high, much higher than me, a few thousand spots. So is it panic stations at the lair, or what? How do you attack the last few weeks when you're sort of in the top couple of hundred?
Good to be back. Good to see the People's Champ as well. We've got some artwork back on the show. Exactly. Shows up about 4 times the size of what Dan Batten produced a couple of weeks ago. It's going okay in the layer. I feel like a bit of a sitting duck at the moment. I went hard with my trades early on and got all the top scorers in my side. Now, most other teams around me have got those players, and my pods just haven't really worked out. I haven't been able to make that next jump. And Dan Bagala mentioned Zach Merritt. I went with Sam Walsh for 100K more over Zach Merritt. We spoke about it on the show, I think, ahead of that round. Hasn't worked out for me points-wise, money-wise. And my man Tom Green just cannot get a kick. When he does, he turns it over or he gives away a free kick. So I dropped down about 200 or so spots, back to 364 on the weekend. So bit of a concern. 2 trades left. Might have to use one this week. A big fella from the Saints could be coming in, which we're sure we'll talk about very shortly. But yeah, it is frustrating. I went down the sort of the point of difference route to sort of make that last climb, and it sort of backfired on me a little bit. So we'll see how we go from in the last 5 rounds.
Yeah, well, Rowan Marshall, I think, is the man you're referring to there, and is the top, I reckon, the topic this week. I looked yesterday, I think, and he was only about the 8th most traded in players. So I'm not sure if people have a little bit slow to jump on, or whether just lack of trades means there's not a whole lot people can do. The most popular trade so far is Maurice Rioli out and Jai Cully in. And yeah, Cully's still the most popular trade. People are still trading in rookies. Jai Cully, Noah Cumberland, and Josh Carmichael, the top 3 most popular trades. But if you're looking for a premium, someone who can score premium numbers over the last 5 rounds, I think Rowan Marshall is someone you'd have to consider. 460 grand. Although I did see just before we came on air that he hasn't trained this week due to illness, but Brett Ratton says he will play. I think he said he's had 4 negative COVID tests, so he's confident that he'll be all right. But yeah, I mean, we just saw when Paddy Ryder goes out, and if anyone missed the news, Paddy Ryder likely to miss the rest of the home and away season, and says he wants to play on next year, which is an interesting call and a bit of a blow to a lot of KFC SuperCoaches thinking of locking in Rowan Marshall in their ruck slot next year. But anyway, we'll worry about that in a few months' time. But yeah, we've seen what he can do with Ryder out of the team. Obviously, he gets to play as the solo ruck. He's done that 5 times this year, and he scored 124, 67, 125, 92, and 156 a few weeks ago against the Swans. So, and I think the Saints draw coming home is pretty good too. He's got West Coast this week, and no Nick Natanui probably in that game, then Hawthorn the next week. So you imagine he could put up some pretty good numbers, and given you can pick him as a forward or a ruck, yeah, it's a pretty compelling case. And I know Tim Mitchell is a massive Rowan Marshall fan. I think he missed out last year when Marshall stormed home, averaged about 120 in the last 5 rounds last year when Ryder was out. And he doesn't want to miss out again. So he's prepared to go down to 0 trades to get Marshall in. What do you think of that, Dan Begala? How essential is Marshall? And, would you go to that extreme? I think he's got some decent bench coverage, but I'm not sure I'm that brave.
Yeah, he's got like untapped upside. There's no doubt about it. But I guess the thing is, like, he's not exactly walking in and showing us with dividends from the last 2 to 3 weeks at re-rate we should be picking him up. I'd be loath to take him this week. I'd be looking to probably pick him up next week if he performs and shows that he's back to his best when he thrives as the number 1 and rucking on in isolation. But I don't really have space for him, unfortunately. I've got English. I've got 7 forwards, as I said earlier, being Heaney and Treloar fighting for that 6th spot in the forward line. But if he comes out and goes 120, I mean, his break-even's about 107 or 110, so he's not really going to move that much. So I'd say my opinion would be wait 1 week, see if he's still at his best. As you said, he's had 4 days off with illness, which is obviously not a good way to prepare for a game. But we know historically he's performed so well without Paddy Ryder. So when he's at his best, he's playing 90% game time. He's getting 25 touches. He's probably going at 40% efficiency, though. That's his thing. But they're contested, and he takes big contested marks. So for me, he's a watch this week. If he really reiterates he needs to be on my side, I'll pick him. But with 3 trades and everyone available at the selection table this week, I'm not going to rock the apple cart, as they say. I'm not going to rock the apple cart and kick someone out and then find out Rowan Marshall gets injured this week, and then I'm all of a sudden really fighting with the numbers to get up each week. So for me, conservative, wait and see. If he goes 120, he'll be on my watch list for next week, but it'll be at the expense of who? I'd probably need someone to go down with an injury first, and for me, it's just conservative until the final start. I want to be able to get Bont if Bont's my break glass in case of emergency type transaction, like where I have to get him in, I have to use 2 trades. So I'm just waiting for that moment so I can unleash him in the finals if I need him. Otherwise, Marshall's probably a lot further in the pecking order in my side. He's not that high on the priority list right now.
What about Phantom? If you had a player who was disappointing, like a Tom Green in the midfield, or maybe Patrick Cripps, and you could trade him out, move a Bont or a Josh Dunkley or someone up to the mids and bring in Marshall in one trade, which you could do. I think Tom Green's maybe 20 grand cheaper than Marshall, but the others are all you'd have enough cash spare to do it. Would that be something you'd consider?
It is, and that's the avenue I'm looking at the moment now. We speak about the numbers he's produced without Ryder. Those numbers you talk about equate to 113-point average without Ryder this season, and last year was 109-point average without Ryder. So numbers are there, very good price. It would take me down to 1 trade, but with the Tom Green thing, Martin Gray said post-match on the weekend, he said this result's going to have an effect on selection. And Tom Green, from what he's done in the past couple of weeks, he's not untouchable by any means, I think, when it comes to Giants team this week. So I'll be watching closely tonight for those teams. And I don't want him to be dropped, but if he is dropped, I will probably swing a Bont or someone into the midfield and bring in Marshall for Tom Green. For KFC SuperCoaches out there, if you've got 4+ trades left, then I think is a move to make sort of without thinking it. Me, I probably am going to hold if Green does remain in the side, but it all depends on, I guess, your situation, how many trades you've got going forward. I wouldn't probably do a Tim Mitchell and go down to 0 trade just to get Rowan Marshall, but if it still leaves you with 2 or 3 and a bit of bench cover, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that bench situation is such a huge part of it. So if you've got someone floating along there, like a Luke Jackson or an Isaac Heaney or Sam Berry, we saw one of the top players last week was able to bring him on as cover for Clayton Oliver, and he scored about 120, which is pretty handy. Then you're in a much more sort of luxurious position in terms of, you can be a bit more ambitious with your trades. Whereas, like I'm relying on, Brady Hoff as my bench cover. So I need to hang on to every trade I've got, I think. What's your bench look like, Dan?
The bench is absolutely decimated. Like the only players I've got were in defence with Massimo or Vanessa Amorossi, I like to call him. He's playing at D8. So I've got a pretty solid defence, and Wer's been performing really well, 70s most week, which is great. Haven't had to play him yet. In the guts, I've got Treloar and Heaney, who I just flip between the two lines depending on who's out. So the last 2 weeks with I played Isaac Heaney's 114 over Cripps, 92. So that was 15 points or 20 points up. And then last week with Ollie out, I played Treloar at M9 and he got 100 or 99. So it was a good position to be in. So in the rucks, I can use Tim English to cover. So there's actually really no one on the bench. There's literally 3 players. I'm oscillating between about 4 lines. So that's what's working for me. But it's a nice position to be because I actually like having these loopholes at this stage. So I'm not actually fielding rookies. I'm fielding relative like primo players, but using them across multiple lines. So if a ruckman misses, English goes into the ruck, Heaney comes onto the field, I've covered 2 lines. Vice versa with the midfield, and then defence, I just play Wer. So I'm pretty privileged in that position. I got forced into that when Tim English went down with the concussion. I got forced to pick Heaney and bring him in, and it sort of all worked out the last 2 weeks. He's been back to his best. He's kicking goals, taking contested marks, and looks really solid. So hopefully with the run that the Swans are about to go on, they had it on Fox Footy last night. David King suggested that they're going to finish top 4. They'll probably win 4 to 5 games. If they win 5, they're definitely in the top 4. If that happens, Isaac Heaney probably has to kick probably 16 to 20 goals. And if he does that, let's just hope there's a few big scores in there that sort of helped him average 100 points between now and then. And he's owned by 47% of teams, so he's not a bad hold if he's going well. But the one that continues to haunt me is Bontempelli, and probably going to be the whole, the catalyst of my moves for the next thing I do. But Bontempelli really hurts not having, because he looks like a man possessed. And I guess the thing I ask coaches out there, being AFL coaches, Brett Ratton, St Kilda Football Club, where is the pressure? Where is the tag? Where is the shoulder at the stoppage? Where is the bump off the ball? Like, how's that bloke able to run around unopposed and do that? I don't understand. I do not understand. But maybe that's because I'm not a AFL coach.
Well, they play Melbourne this week, so not sure who they'd have. Maybe Harms or someone could run with him. But
he's got a great record against them.
He does, yeah. In fact, we'll get to captains later. But all those, the big names in that game have all got good records against each other, so it makes it pretty tough. Phantom Michael here is asking a good question, talking about the Swans' good run home. Keller Mills is one of the Phantoms' favourites from way back.
Yep.
But would you pick him over Rory Laird? He's a lot cheaper. That's one big advantage.
Yeah, interesting one. I think if money is a bit of an issue, or maybe you have a few other trades left, you want to have some money in the bank for the next 4 weeks, then I think Mills, you definitely can do. We know he can go as big as any KFC SuperCoach scorer in the competition, and should score well in the run home. But if you want consistency, we spoke about it on the Laird this week. Rory Laird scored 93, I think, in round 1. He's posted 3 figures every round since. So if you can afford Rory Laird, he's sort of a safest house of selection. Pick him and don't worry about it. But again, if you need the money, then in terms of risk and reward, if Horse doesn't put Mills behind the ball for a half on a weekend, we know he can get back to that 150 plus, even 200 again, what he did early in the year. So Laird's a bit safer, more consistent. You know what you're definitely going to get from him. Whereas Mills, you might be a little bit up and down, but I guess it only takes one massive score to tip the scales in Mills' favour. So again, if you got the money, no issue. I'd probably still go Laird, but as you know, I do like Callum Mills.
Yes, we do know that. What's your thoughts on that, Dan? And the other thing that this made me think of too is the question that's bedeviling a lot of super coaches. He certainly was the most traded out player when I looked a day or so ago, is Patrick Cripps. And you could, so Mills is probably one of the top trades potentially for him, or maybe a Jack Steele, or you could move him out and get a Rowan Marshall. But if you had the trades left, do you think you would bite the bullet on Paddy Cripps 5 weeks in a row now, I think, without a ton? but maybe with Pitnet coming back might free him up a tiny bit. Where do you sit on Paddy Cripps?
Yeah, well, I think back to that last example, with Laird versus Mills, I think for Phantom, that's the exact same scenario with Zerrett versus Walsh. Do you pay the top dollar and look for the proven dividends, or do you take the discounted asset and take it from there? I think in that instance, you take the discounted player, being Mills, and hope that the upside comes. Because, I mean, how often do we think Roy Laird's going to get double octopus, 20 tackles in a game? That's unbelievable. 10 tackles times 2, double octopus. So, to do that, that's just amazing defensive work. But, again, they're both defensive athletes in terms of Mills is probably the best two-way defending midfielder in the comp. And I think a few people have come out and said that. But to the Cripps example, I just have to suffer for now. I just have to expect that Carlton are pushing for top 8, let's say, maybe top 4, stretch target, top 4. Cripps has to pick it up. And I guess he's just been not getting the ball numbers that he typically was at the start of the year, and he's not hitting the scoreboard like he once was. So whether he's doing a role, it's a little bit sacrificial. That could be a part of it. He's doing some of the secondary ruck actions, which is not ideal. But I'm going to just persist. He's so heavily owned, it's not a problem. If he was only in 20% of teams, I'd probably have to start thinking about a reverse pod, getting caught in that. But I'm pretty confident, everyone's got him, everyone's wearing him. And because I've got the additional mid-forward, I can always have a look at him. And that's what I'm planning to do this week. I'm planning to look at either Treloar and then play Cripps over the top, depending on how he performs. And that's it's got to that stage now. It's quite disappointing because he was one of the most sought-after players and probably Brownlow medal favourite at round 4. But, he's either suffering from an injury, an ailment, or he's doing a sacrificial team-led role, which could be part of it as well. But I would probably, as Vance said earlier, I'd probably say if you've got 4 plus 5 trades and you're ahead of both or all of us, I'd probably go to a Mills or a Laird. But Mills at $575,000, that screams arbitrage to me. It feels like he was a 650, 670 type player. He was the highest averaging player for a few weeks up that 200. So for me, I feel like that's a nice little easy jump to get to, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get improved dividends from him. So if I had 5 trades, I'd look at one of those fellas as a really good replacement. But again, bird in the hand, do you hold on another week and get closer to the finals and try and get right into it before you pull those triggers? I probably think you do. I think you do.
You probably, you might want to look at the league ladder and see where you're placed. If you need to win this week to make top 4 or top 8 or something, then maybe it's an incentive to bite the bullet now. But I just looked up the stats, Phantom, and Cripps is still the most traded out player, just ahead of Tom Green. So, the priority of those two, I think if you've got them both, Green's probably the bigger worry, given his scoring the last couple of weeks. But what are your thoughts on Cripps? And then Tom's question here about Josh Keller, who we think is just going to miss 1 with concussion, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. I agree with Dan Begala's thoughts there. And he mentioned how it's not a massive problem because he is so heavily owned. That's also an opportunity for KFC SuperCoaches with some trades up their sleeve, as he also mentioned, to get a bit of a jump and trade him out and go for a Mills and make some points up if Cripps' form line continues the way it's going, because he's not getting on the outside as much. We saw him breaking tackles, running out in space, getting the footy out. He looked like a new player in the first half of the year. But I guess with Adam Cherub back in and kicking into gear, and Sam Walsh as well, they've got enough runners also on the outside. So it could be a bit of a mix, I think, the reason for Patrick Cripps' form. Tom's question here, Josh Kelly, 2 trades. I think you got to hold again. Bit of a Clayton Oliver situation from last week. If he's only going to miss 1, likely 1, then you keep him. But again, he's not Clayton Oliver. Josh Kelly isn't Clayton Oliver. His CBAs were down on the weekend. I think he had 9 and Tom Green had 7. When you've got Jacob Hopper coming back in and Callum Ward also returning to that on-ball mix as well. So 2 trades I'd hold, but if you've got a few, I'd be more inclined to definitely think about an aggressive sideways move from Kelly, even if you were sitting pretty safe in the Clayton Oliver camp last week.
Another Josh Kelly owner here, Abdul, who was the guest on the SuperCoach podcast this week. Look that up if you haven't already, because he was absolutely fantastic. Abdul is leading KFC SuperCoach at the moment. He's at number 1 out of 168,000 or so players. And I know he owns Kelly, so he's a bit nervous about what's going on there, but at least he gets Clayton Oliver back. And he has 0 trades. In fact, he's had 0 trades for 3 weeks. So he's managed to get to number 1 without any, and now going to try and hang on for 5 more weeks. Now, he's asking here about Jordan Dawson. Phantom, again, you're the Jordan Dawson correspondent, but some talk that he's been ill this week. Have you gone around to visit him and see how he's going?
I haven't seen him this week, but Matt Turner, I think, was down there at Crows training yesterday from the Tizer. He similar sort of story to Rowan Marshall with another illness, but the Crows do expect him to play, just a bit precautionary. I think, 3 years ago, blokes would have been missing training because they weren't feeling that well, left, right, centre, and no one would have said anything. But because of the COVID thing, just people are talking about it now, and even just a management issue. A lot of the good guys or the big games aren't training probably a lot at this stage of the year on a cold July Wednesday afternoon if they've got a game on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon. So we get a bit worried about that. I know we like the panic here in the KFC SuperCoach community, but at this point, the Crows do expect Dawson to play.
Yeah, there was the last week, the big rumour, wasn't there, that Josh Dunkley didn't train, but he obviously played. And even though his form's been a little bit down, he wasn't too bad. Dan, what's your thoughts on the going down to, how far out from the finish line would you be prepared to go to zero trades? Like Abdul's done it at about round 13 or something. That seems quite extreme, but if you're someone who's been up in the rankings, well, both of you guys have in the past, but can you just go for broke, or you prefer to have something in your back pocket for the last couple of rounds, finals, grand finals, those kinds of things?
Well, I reckon I've quoted this bloke probably 10 times this season. And you know who he is. It's Ethan Hawke, or Vincent Freeman from Gattaca, who at the conclusion of the film says to his brother, who is genetically more superior to him, he says, I never saved anything for the swim back. And I think that's what Abdul's done here. He has not saved a single dime for the swim back. He has gone all out into the ocean, and best of luck to him. But to me, I'm an anxious person, and to have no trades and let 5 weeks have no control over the next 5 weeks, that makes me worried thinking about that. I feel for him because I've read some of his tweets and they're very emotive on Twitter, and I know he's feeling pressure. That's not how I like to live. But obviously Abdul, he can handle it. He can get in that pressure cooker and he can get his way out. But as we've seen in the past, a lot of the historic champions, they do the Vincent Freeman. They blow all their trades. They jump ahead of the pack. They bump a lead out, and then they just hold on and they hold on. And guys will comment, like the guy won it a few years ago. I think his name started with a D, but he had like Scott Lycett in the grand final, and he won him the SuperCoach. So Abdul could be in a position where Jacob wins him SuperCoach in round 23. So that's the sort of thing. I think with SuperCoach being so congested and everyone having very similar teams as you get towards the pointy ends of the rounds, it's all about the points you make up front, because you're not really getting that much on people from here on in, unless you pick blokes that are Jed Anderson, as the fandom's done, and hope that they score 180 most weeks. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So I like his attitude, but like, you're not going to win at conserving trades and having 5 trades in the last round. You have to be going hard, and kudos to him. I've never been that high. I mean, I've never had a 1 in front of my name, but good luck to Abdul. I've been sort of tracking him on Twitter inadvertently. He keeps popping up, and it feels stressful, but best of luck. I think it's not a game fitting of everyone. Like it's pretty stressful, but hopefully he gets some luck. And he's already got some problems this week with, if Dawson plays, the other part of that is that Dylan Clark or Jordan Clark or whatever the guy's name is at Sydney, he's going to go straight to him. We know where he's going. He's going straight to him or potentially Laird. But I think he's going to go Jordan Dawson, because the Hawks employed the tactic with the young fellow that wears number 32 at Hawthorn. And then they posted a tweet boasting about the tagging effort on their actual official profile. So Dawson's getting tagged this week. Irrespective of whether he's sick, he will get tagged. So that's my view.
He will, and like he's done so in the past, that it's probably the move. Matthew Nicks probably then moves him forward, potentially plays him as a marking forward, and Ryan Clark's not going to be able to go to him there, but it's also going to have a big impact on his scoring as well. Just quickly though, speaking of Matt Turner, the hipster from the Lairs, just phoned in saying that looks like Port will roll the dice and bring Bryn Teakle straight back in for this weekend's clash. So if you've still got him on the bench and you need some cover for some reason, Bryn Teakle set to play, as the hipsters just telling us from Alberton.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Who Port got this week? Geelong. Not the easiest opposition, but still, yeah, every bench player who's playing is definitely handy at this stage. Actually, speaking of bench players, I should Karen gives us a question most weeks, and she's thrown in here. She accidentally, well, not accidentally, but traded out Nick Dacos. I wouldn't be beating yourself up over that, because nearly everybody did. If anyone who's still got him, just unbelievable. And he's almost got past. There's talk a couple of weeks ago that you could potentially trade him back in, and now he's like $550K or something. So he's more expensive than Sam Doherty, I think. So it'd be a big move to trade him back in. It will be interesting to see over the next few weeks whether he gets a tag, because you think at Collingwood, there's not a heap of other players that you might put some attention into from an opposition point of view. So would a Jai Caldwell, for example, this weekend sidle up to Nick Dacos, which would be pretty incredible in about his 18th AFL game. Heard some discussion on another podcast whether you would pick Nick Dacos in your starting team next year. It's going to be, well, he will be in the mix, but it's he's going to be one of the top priced defenders, I think. So hopefully we'll get him as a defender. But he's just been absolutely unbelievable. I think he's 3-round average and 5-round average are both ranked number 1 out of defenders in KFC SuperCoach. So that's absolutely nuts. But Karen did get Jai Culley, who looked pretty good last week in his first game. I think he had 10 or 11 tackles. So you would have loved that, Dan. If you have the money to the trades to maybe bring in a rookie, and that could free up some cash for a second trade, is Culley the number 1? We've also got Josh Carmichael from the Pies on the bubble this week. I picked him up a couple of weeks ago, mid forward, and he's been finding a bit of the ball. So he's been, okay if that's all you want for bench cover. His disposal efficiency last week was absolutely abysmal. He had 24 kicks, 0 handballs, and went at about 20% efficiency. I think 6 of his kicks hit the target. So hopefully he can improve on that. But then you've also got another bubble boy, Noah Cumberland at the Tigers, who's kicked, I think, 5 goals, 7 in his 2 games. So he's getting on the scoreboard. Scored 100 last week against North. So he's another option, but the other guys are a little bit cheaper. Did you like what you saw from Culley in his first game?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to see the game physically, but I had some mates in my ear pretty hard about it because they went early on him. And I actually quite like the notion of a defensive-minded rookie. Like, he's come in and had 11 tackles and an octopus on debut, which is pretty amazing. I think he even kicked a goal, but I think he even had more tackles than he had disposals. But a great story to kick off. The reason I like Culley is because the West Coast Eagles are like season over sort of thing, and it's the perfect team to try and enforce your way into that side and sort of retain your spot. Let's see what he's capable of for FY22 and then get him ready for a big 2023. So that's what I think Simpson will do, and he was glowing in his praise of him. The way he spoke of him was very high. So I think that he's got at least 3 to 4 week window to go and play, which is great, and that could be great coverage. I like the mid-forward swing. And the thing is with Cumberland, like, I know he's kicked 5 goals. I mean, I haven't even been paying any attention to rookies because I've been so fixated on retaining trades and focusing on getting my team right. But I just don't think his job security is all that high at Richmond. Like, they're pushing for the 8. This is their last roll of the dice. Can they make it? Can they survive? They've had a few injuries. I don't really love Cumberland's JS. Whereas, again, the other thing that we always talk about is that why would you jump on a rookie at week 1? It's always best to at least buy on the bubble boy. And the bubble boy is Cumberland. So maybe there's merit in taking Cumberland, making some money, guaranteeing the money. But I do like the flex of the mid-forward of Culley. That does is he mid-forward? Maybe he's a defender forward. Oh,
no, mid-forward Culley, yeah. So Carmichael is too, actually. I mean,
Carmichael's going to get squeezed out of that side, right? Collingwood are too strong.
To go, he'll be back soon, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a worry there. And you think maybe Tom Lynch back in a week or 2 might be trouble for Cumberland, although he's been pretty good so far. You wouldn't drop him on form at the moment. Quick one before we get to some captaincy talk. Corey asking, would you trade Liam Baker to Rowan Marshall? I mean, it comes down to how many trades you have, but I think I probably would. He's a hipster special, Liam Baker, and he was looking fantastic for a run there in the middle of the year. But his flexibility is what Damien Hardwick loves, but it sort of can be his undoing. So last week, I'm not really sure what they were doing at Richmond selection. They dropped 3 small forwards, and then they moved Baker down there. So he played as a small forward last week. So, I don't think you can rely on him for the rest of the year. But now Corey's saying only 2 trades. So having said that, geez, I don't know. You'd want pretty solid bench cover to go down to 1, I think, with bringing Marshall in just as a bit of a sideways. Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, Baker's capable of putting up good scores. You just don't know what his role is going to be each week. That's the worry there. But getting on to some captaincy talk to finish things up. Dan, have you had a look? I mean, the grand final rematch, there's just heaps of great options there. And like you say, Bont has a great record against the Demons. Clary has a good record against the Dogs. So does Petrarca, scored 160 against them in the grand final, then again in round 1. Or is there just too many cooks in that game and you might look somewhere else?
Yeah, like I've been thinking that all week because, again, like Brynov Teakle coming into play actually affects my ability to loophole. I think he was one of my better solutions. He's a Sunday. Actually, no, he's a late Saturday game, 4:35. So actually that really hurts. I might have to pull the trigger on someone a bit earlier in the round because, I mean, ideally you want to have a look at that Oliver, Petrarca, McRae. They're my 3 that I would go with. But then again, it's like it's difficult to pick which one's going to lick the ice cream. I think Petrarca will lick the ice cream this week. I think he's going to go and haunt them again. That's what I think he's going to do, even though it's at Marvel. But after that, I'm sort of left with going to Zach Merritt on Sunday. Like, I think Zach Merritt's in like really strong form right now. Like, he's not getting any attention. The Pies don't have anyone that can run with him other than maybe Jack Crisp does a head-to-head. So I think Zach Merritt will be my fallback, and I think one of the boys from the Bulldogs Melbourne feature game will get a gig as VC. I think I'm going to stay clear of Clary because I just feel like coming from a broken hand, his best attribute is his contested ball winning via his hands, particularly his handballing. So I'm a bit worried that he's not going to be at his best. And then the other one was Lockie Neal versus the Gold Coast in a Q clash. Obviously, they'll tag him. Like, will it be either Took Miller or Matthew Rowell will be heavy tags on him. So I don't want to go near Lockie Neal either. So it's the last 2 weeks. Last week was hard. This week's looking pretty hard. There's no standout in my opinion, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think because I've been thinking about it all week and I haven't nailed down a name yet. And that's why last week I took Lockie Neal's 121. I'm like, it's good enough. I'll take it and let's move on.
I think the one standout this week, unfortunately, someone I don't have in my team, but Phantom, have you got Andy Brayshaw? Because he plays the Tigers on Friday night, scored 190 against them last year. And the way Richmond's going, how they managed to lock down on opposition midfielders, i.e. not at all. I reckon he could be in for another massive game.
I don't have him, but I do like that call. How about Will Brodie? My man Will Brodie could be a unique VC option. But I think the game for me, Saturday, the early game on Saturday, the Swans at home to the Crows, I'll probably go Mills as VC there. And there's no reason if you do have Rory Laird, doesn't matter where he plays, doesn't matter if the Crows lose, he should still score pretty well. I'd go VC on him too. So good VC game there, but then it's then you got to back in a Clayton Oliver or Jack McRae in that difficult game, which you guys have spoken about. So that's the concern. But I think Mills probably too good a VC option for me to overlook. And then I probably will go Clary up. Dan McGull, I know you said about his hand, his injured finger, but he suffered it down at Geelong and he was still okay after that. I know it's obviously the surgery and it's all about the wound now and how it's healed. But a player like if he wasn't ready to go and do exactly what he does best, then surely he just doesn't play. So I think he'll be okay, and he'll probably still be my C if Mills fails.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, Jack McRae, I looked up his numbers against Melbourne as well, and I think in his last 5, his lowest against them is 120. So probably hasn't put up the mega scores like a Petrarca type, but he's pretty reliable. So he could be a safe backup, I think, for me as captain. Looking at, I think Rory Laird against the Swans will probably be a tougher opposition in the midfield. And as you say, probably unlikely to have 20 tackles again, but he's just been so reliable this year. The other one that I'd be tempted by, but it's annoying, it's a weird fixture this week. They played exactly the same time, North and Hawthorn. So I've got Todd Goldstein as a possible VC against the Hawks. So we talked him up last week against Richmond thinking that Nank wouldn't play, and Nank actually got up, and Goldie still scored 135. So he's in a pretty good run of form, and the Hawks don't have the strongest ruck setup either. So, I don't mind that. But I think Zach Merritt is actually a really good call too as a backup because I think he's got 2 140s in his past 2 weeks, and Collingwood's been giving up some really big scores to opposition midfielders. Laird last week, and LDU, I think it was a week before, scored nearly 150. So, they don't really do much in terms of tagging either. So, I think
Merritt's last 3 against Collingwood are pretty much all greater than 120. So he's got a great record. They've got a bit of vigor in their team. The other one I was thinking about, and it's a bit of a, I was actually hoping Nank was a bit sore. Well, actually, I don't want to hope that, but I thought he'd maybe miss, and then you'd be completely exposed in the ruck. And that's Sean Darcy has been in really strong form, and I reckon if Goldie goes 130 against Nank, what's Sean Darcy going to do? He's starting to rip into some good nick right now, and struggled, I guess, with Hickey on the weekend. He got to 98 or where it was, but I was actually considering him because I love that Brayshaw thought that you said earlier. And I remember that game from last year. It was in the slop. It was in the wet. It was close. And the points were just on offer. But I do think that Brayshaw's starting to drag the attention and the ire of taggers. And I think last week, Sydney deployed one against him. And then this week, I think he'll probably get Jack Graham, won't he? Is that who you normally run with?
Sort of. Yeah, run with. They don't really play a hard tag. So I wouldn't be too concerned. But you might at least try and keep him a little bit accountable. But don't mind Darcy. And Nank maybe was still a little bit sore from that.
MCL.
He had a bit of a knee problem, didn't he? Yeah. So he wasn't at his best against Goldie, and maybe that opens the door. I think Soldo may be back this week. But Darcy's, you just want to be on him. And if he's playing a Friday night, it's probably the ideal opportunity to have a go at it when he has that game where he scores 180 because we know he can do it. So it could be the week. But Hopefully not from a Tigers point of view, but yeah, it wouldn't shock me. But we just about have to wrap things up there, folks. We're waiting for need a zinger of the week, but I don't know if hasn't been as many comments this week. We haven't had. I guess people don't really have trades left, so there's not a whole lot you can really do. But could you give it to Anthony for that? That's so. This is he's obviously keeping tabs on our
scores,
individual scores. Yeah.
Maybe we can have a Zinger Burger combo, a Zinger box on this bet. Whoever, if you guys can catch me, I feel everyone wants to catch me. Everyone likes to see the Phantom go down. So I'm sure you guys are trying to get me.
Tim Mitchell does.
He does.
I mean, what 660 points over 5 rounds is 100 and something.
100 points a week, really.
Is that actually even close, Dan? You sort of probably watch the rankings closer than me. That's still a long way to make up.
Yeah, well, I think Phantom had me like 700 points at one stage, and now it's 230. So I guess he's been pretty unlucky with some of his pods, and I think that can happen. But I'm trying to find Al on this list. Maybe you're not in this group. I'm in. But
the top 3,000. I'll give you my overall points. Hang on.
I feel like Dan Batten's the one that's sneaking up on the radar.
Al's 430 points behind you, Dan.
Okay, yeah. So that makes sense. So yeah, for me, I think with the trades up my sleeve, I feel like I'll start to get some momentum and get going. But like Phantom's got some absolute superstar pods, Mills, Dawson, guys that go like 150 regularly, and that's what I'm envious of them and Bont. But the other elephant in the room is Max Gawn. Like, I mean, everyone was telling me it's time to jump on, it's time to jump on, it's time to jump on. His last 2 weeks, 95 and then 50 in the nation's capital, or not nation's capital, and up in Alice Springs. Like, what was that? Charlie Dixon and Mitch Finlayson is actually a friend of mine, Mitch Finlayson. Finlayson, like, what was that? 50 points. Was it too hot? Is he just underdone? Is he still injured? What is going on there? Like, he's going to be the guy that will break finals open. And I think that we probably didn't give him any time today, but Max Gawn's performances the last fortnight, jeepers, he's not really warranting selection just yet.
No, yeah, geez. I mean, I think we're going to be spending a lot of time next preseason talking about ruck, so I don't know how we're going to pick a ruckman for next year. And Marshall, one thing about Marshall finishing this year as the number 1 ruck at St Kilda for the last 5 rounds, it means it'll push his price up. And it also means he might lose that because I think at the moment, he's on about 36% forward time, which is just enough to get forward ruck, but he might lose that over the next 5 weeks, which is annoying. But anyway, we can worry about that next week. But yeah, I mean, at one stage, Gawn looked like he could be an unbelievable pod to bring in for the SuperCoach finals, but it's probably not looking that way at the moment. But all right. Someone actually question on I mean, have you still got Luke Jackson, Phantom? What are we doing with him for the last few weeks?
Well, he was okay last week. I've still got him on my bench. Obviously in a full team, I'm looping a score from Anderson or Jackson, depending on what happens. Maybe a Tom Green now if he does stay in the side. But obviously haven't been able to do that given the injuries over the past month or so. But he still scores pretty well, and he was pretty good last weekend. So given he's that loophole option for me and that sort of bench cover with a full side, I'm more than happy keeping him. I hope he's fit. I haven't heard much more. I know Dan Begala is probably our man to tell us a bit more about D's ruckman. Any whispers?
No, I haven't heard anything. I've been pretty much out of the loop, which has been good. But he looked great against Port Adelaide. Like, he really bobbled up and kicked 2 goals, I think, or maybe 1 goal. One of them was at ground level. Like, it's like basketball days. He was going back to his halcyon era as a basketballer, and he kicked a great goal in close. But haven't heard any whispers. But again, he had a medial 2 weeks ago. Like, I mean, miraculous recovery from that. And who knows, maybe it's flared up again. But Gawn owners, you probably want Jacko out of the side as quickly as you can, because he just thwarts his scoring capacity. And I saw poor old Tandy's going after the Phantom in the comments. He wants to see you go down, Phantom.
Doesn't everyone?
No, I think it would be better if we can catch up rather than you coming down the other way. But
yes.
We can all run across the line holding each other's hands together.
Exactly. That'll be magnificent. All right. We better wrap things up there. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I know not a heap of trades left, but if you've got some, good luck using them, and deploy those loopholes, and captaincy, things like that are really going to make a big difference just to gain an edge over the last few rounds. And have a look at your league ladder and see if you're going to be playing finals next week, because that's going to be kicking off in just over a week's time. So thanks everybody for jumping on. We'll be back very soon with some more KFC SuperCoach TV.